Previously in the studio, I decided to redo an older piece of artwork, tore it completely back down to nothing, and then I decided to build up the layers using some corrugated cardboard, got some painted layers over them, and here's where we kind of stopped this process. But before we jump into this week's video, here's a quick introduction in case you're wondering who I am.
Hi there, I'm Stacy, the encaustic mixed media artist behind Studio Stacy. Encaustic literally means to burn in. So I paint with beeswax and a torch, and because it's mixed media, pretty much anything else I can get my hands on. If you're new around here, welcome. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. Consider subscribing and joining this artsy community. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, which helps me get introduced to more like-minded artsy folks like yourself. Hello, and welcome back to the studio. Welcome back to hopefully getting this painting, part 2 of this painting, and hopefully getting it done in this video. I'm going to flip the camera around and kind of show you what I'm thinking about doing, and we'll see if it works out. Alright, so I have this sketch of pine trees here that I did when I laid this painting out. And then I decided to use all these layers of cardboard, and I thought I was going to scrap this pine tree idea. And this goes right like that, basically. And so I think it definitely will add to the painting. However, because I have these huge kind of drop-offs here in the painting because of the cardboard, I'm not just going to paint those trees on because, you know, this is a lot of either wax to build up or layers to build up. Since I have this layer of cardboard here, technically this is 2 layers of cardboard right here. So I think what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to break up these pine trees. So I'm not going to have pine trees going across the entire thing. I think that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to try to put them in some strategic areas. And then my other thought is, hang on, hold please. All right, I have this empty pad of mixed media paper. So continuing on with this kind of recycling cardboard theme, the back of it is pretty thick cardboard, not as thick as the corrugated cardboard, but I'm hoping I can cut out details enough of these pine trees out of this cardboard. And then because it's thicker, it in theory won't bend. So if a pine tree like goes beyond this level and up into this level or something, it won't bend in theory. It'll just kind of sit on top of these layers. That's my thought. We'll see how this goes. So my thought is to retrace some of these pine trees and kind of lay them out on here first before I transfer them out onto the cardboard and cut them out of the cardboard. That way I can kind of lay them out, see how I think they might look, and tweak if I need them to be tweaked. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this very well, but this is what I came up with. And I kind of decided on this arrangement as to not block any of the, like, that kind of texture below. So this pair will kind of just barely skim over that texture. And then I have a bunch of texture right here So this tree will kind of just barely touch that texture. This texture will be somewhat preserved, and I don't have really any texture on the bottom over here. So, and then these two trees do go into the next layer, but it's only like one layer of cardboard deep. So I think that'll be okay. And I might still end up putting a bracing or something back here. We'll see. All right, now one more thought here before I transfer these drawings onto this cardboard, and that is I don't normally use, sorry about that glare, this transfer paper because it easily comes off, like on my hands, on everything. So I don't normally use that when I'm transferring image directly onto the encaustic wax, but I'm going to attempt to try it with this cardboard. But just so you know, I know I've mentioned this 1,010 times, I would not get this particular transfer paper to transfer directly onto wax because it really does transfer very easily. And by very easily, I mean it makes a big old mess on the entire surface. So we'll see how this goes. All right, I think you can tell, but my hands are quite messy just from tearing off. My fingertips are, you can kind of see, especially this one is rather black. And this thumb is also rather black, but I can't twist my arm that way. Anyways, just from tearing off one piece of paper, it gets your hands rather messy. So that's why I don't normally use it on top of the wax, but we're gonna hopefully see how this works, and maybe it won't make a big mess on this entire thing of cardboard. We'll find out.
All right, well, that transfer paper actually worked better than I thought. So I'm gonna get these trees cut out and I will pick you all back up in the morning. See you then.
Morning all. Yesterday I managed to get all the trees cut out of that cardboard. Thank you to Matt for helping me out with that. It saved my little hands. And this morning, very early this morning, I ran to a hardware store over in Pennsylvania to get some tar. And that was the closest place that they had it, which is only about a half hour away. We're very close to Pennsylvania, but at any rate, I'm going to put that down onto this painting, the layers of cardboard that are already on there, and then hopefully also get these trees painted today. We'll see what time allows for. All right, small change of plans there. I think you could tell that tar is pretty runny. So I scooped some out into a smaller container and I'm just kind of let it sit up just a bit to hopefully thicken up a bit. And I'm gonna switch gears and paint these trees. So they paint these little cardboard trees. Aren't they cute? Anyways, I need to pick out a green color next, so that's the plan. And then hopefully that by the time these kind of get done and painted, I'll have time to stick the tar down and it will have thickened up just a bit. I have two different green colors picked out that I think I'm going to probably use. I stuck just some like scrap kind of pieces of paper down to protect the work surface a bit. Because these are flat and not a cradled panel, I think the wax is probably going to really spill over a lot. And it'll just, you know, make cleanup a little bit easier, and I won't have like a big puddle of wax there. Hopefully I won't get a big puddle, but you never know. Anyways, I'm going to put down some clear encaustic medium on these first, and then probably a bit of white paint and then the green. That's the thought anyways. So yeah, well, let's get putting some encaustic medium down. I should also say you probably saw I have the heat gun out because, again, flammable material. So going back to the heat gun and away from the torch for this one again. I don't know if you were able to tell in that time lapse, but I wanted to make sure I had quite a bit of texture on these trees because they're trees. And so to get texture with encaustic, you want to take like a cooler brush, not loaded up with a ton of paint or medium, and you kind of want to let it drip off a little bit and then maybe wave it around. Let the wax cool off just a bit, and then kind of swipe it quickly over the painting, or in this case the cardboard with the trees, and that just allows the wax to kind of just stick to certain areas. And then the more you do that, the more raised those areas become and the more textured of a piece you will get. So I try to do that right away if I know I want texture in a painting, like right from the get-go, starting with the first several layers of encaustic medium. And that just allows the paint to continue to build up that texture as when I start applying the colors to it. So, which is the next step, getting paint on these trees. Colored paint, I should say. Green paint specifically. Anyways, let's get to painting these. One more thought I wanted to mention. You also want to fuse ever so lightly. You still need to fuse so that the layers adhere or fuse to the layers underneath. So you still need to fuse the encaustic paint or medium, but you want to fuse really, really lightly, just kind of going back and forth quickly with either the torch or the heat gun, and not obliterating that texture, just a real light fuse. And then that's how you add texture to paintings. I know I've mentioned this in the past, but thought worth mentioning because I'm adding quite a bit of texture to this painting.
Right, trees are painted, and now I think it's time to check on that tar to see if it has solidified a bit more.
All right, I think you can tell this may have like thickened up a bit. It's a bit more gloppy. But I'm gonna just practice with a bit of it on this spare panel that I have here that is pretty much nothing, just where I stick some excess wax onto. So I'm just going to put a little bit here to see, just to make sure I don't ruin, these two panels. So practice, I think, is what I'm going to do, just because I think this is the same stuff that I've normally used in the past, but I just, going to make sure, just to make sure. So anyways. All right, I think you can see that, how it kind of settles into the nooks and crannies in a way. So I think it's good. And what I'm going to do is just clear off some space, stick you on time lapse, and put some on, excuse me, these two panels. And I'm going to stick you on time lapse because I wear gloves with it, as you probably saw. And once I get my hands messy, I'm not going to be able to touch the camera again. So here you go, tar time lapse time. Alright, I think you can tell the difference pretty much between the two. Like this one does not have the tar on it. This one does. It just adds an extra other dimension to it. Kind of fills in all of those nooks and crannies and really brings out the texture. So I'm going to continue on with this one, and I'll pick you back up when they're both have the tar on them. So see you in a few. All right, this is how this painting is going to eventually get laid out, but I want to let the tar completely cure and dry on these before I attempt to get these trees stuck down onto the painting. So I will pick you guys up in probably a day or two. For you all, it'll just be a few moments. But yeah, I just want to make sure that the tar is fully cured on there before I stick the trees down. But I'm really happy with how this is coming out now in the end. It took a little while to get there, but I think it was worth it. Good morning, all. I got in here in the studio the other day and didn't pick up the camera, but I'll flip the camera around and show you the state of the studio and what I've done. Excuse me, it wasn't like super exciting, so that's why I didn't film it. Also, I know I keep mentioning this, but we have so many things going on. Soon I will disclose all of the stuff to you all, kind of what's been going on behind the scenes. And we are definitely full on spring here, and slowly getting into summer as well. So yeah, summer travel is going to really start picking up, and I'm really excited about all of the things. So, but anyway, let me flip the camera around and show you what I've done with these paintings. Alright, so I basically took the same E6000 glue that I used to glue all the cardboard pieces down with onto the panel, and I glued the trees down onto the finished painting. And these, I think you can tell, let's try to get a side angle here. I did end up bending these trees down, just the top of these three. They were the only ones that really went over the edge of the cardboard pieces. These other two were just basically on the single layer of cardboard, so those were easy peasy. But these I did decide to bend down just a bit and stuck the tips of them down on this other layer, because I thought that would be more stable, especially if I ended up needing to ship these pieces anywhere, or like traveling to art shows and things like that, rather than just having these tips kind of out here in the open, if you will, without any huge amount of support underneath them. So that's what I did. And like I said, I didn't film it because it was just gluing the trees down. Not that exciting, but I thought I'd at least let you know what I did. Oh, and then I did put a bunch of books, which you saw me take off, on top of these, just to make sure everything was really smushed down together and all of the edges and everything was touching and glued down nicely. All right, so I think the only thing left to do now with these paintings is take off the tape. So I'm going to do that next, and then I'll put the paintings upright so you can see them kind of in their final, I guess, finalized, the finished painting. That's what I want to say. Goodness gracious, why are words so difficult for me? Any rate, I'm going to take the tape off, and then I will show you them upright as they would look hanging on a wall so you can see the finished results. Taking the tape off always makes me very, very, very happy. There's just something satisfying about pulling the tape off and just having a nice, clean, crisp kind of painted edge on the paintings. So anyways, I was just smiling about that and I had to share. So I'm going to flip the camera around and show you these finished paintings. All right, there they are. Let's get you a couple close-ups here. And yeah, I'm really happy with how these came out. Really happy with the texture of the trees, texture of the mountains, and then of course how the tar filled in everything, and the colors in the sky. Really happy with how these came out. So yay, 2 more paintings I think are done. All right, all, I'm calling this video also done. So if you have any questions or comments, just want to say hi, let me know down there below in the comment section. And don't forget, if you have a question, chances are somebody else does too. So please don't be afraid to ask it. I am very, very, very happy to answer anything and everything that I can, especially when it comes to encaustic. So, and if you did like the video, don't forget, give it a thumbs up if you got something out of it, if it made you smile, any of the above, give it a thumbs up. It truly, truly does help me out. Thanks again for coming along and watching this video. We'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.